Hey friends, it's Advisha Coastal Magnolia. I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. Welcome to my channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you're already a subscriber. I am really excited to show you this video. I have been obsessed with UV resin bubbles. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. It is so fun. It's so versatile. Just look at that. These are really simple. It's super fun to do. It's super fun to do. I cannot wait to show you how I did this. So stay tuned, follow the video, and I'm gonna show you how. All right? All right. First things first, take off the price tags and give your glasses a good clean with some Windex or just plain alcohol. And just like when you're cooking a recipe, get all your ingredients together before you start. And for this recipe, we need UV resin, a UV resin curing light, a paintbrush, and some bubbles. And honestly, this was the best part, blowing bubbles. Who doesn't love to blow bubbles? The first time I did this technique, I applied the UV resin in sections on the glass, but this time I'm going to apply it all around the bottom of the glass because I want the bubbles to be just on the bottom of the glass. And I got a little drip there. And I think I'm probably using about maybe 2 to 3 milliliters. Honestly, I did not measure the amount of UV resin that I use, but I'm just using my paintbrush to spread it, just spread it around so that it's not so thick and not so drippy along the glass. So I'm just using my brush to spread it around, and then I took a little bit more of the UV resin and just poured it around the very bottom of the glass and let it drip so it was a little thicker. And I thought I was going to be smart and reuse the bubbles that were in my container, but they had already popped by that point. So here's where I have some fun with bubbles, but it's really not working out the way that I had envisioned. So I'm making a great big mess at this point. I just don't have enough practice with this technique to really know how to do it correctly. So I'm kind of fumbling around, but here I get the hang of it. Now my UV resin light, it's a curing light. It's a UV resin curing light. And this is a 60-second light. It's a light that I bought in a set on Amazon. There's a link below in the description. It's from Let's Resin. It came in a kit, and it was I can't remember how much it was, but it came with a light and 2 bottles of resin. Now the resin I'm using today is not Let's Resin. It is the Light Wish UV resin that was sent to me by the folks at Light Wish to try out.
Figure that out.
And I'm using a full 60-second cure on this glass, just turning it so that I hit all sides of the glass. The towel is definitely going to help with the mess. I'm taking a paper towel to wipe off the bubbles and the drips, and this really probably was not the best idea. I did not realize that it would take a little bit longer for the UV resin to cure, and I ended up leaving a little bit of residue on the bubbles themselves. I didn't ruin the bubbles, but they were definitely still a little sticky. So I'm repeating the same thing on the second glass. I'm using a little bit more, excuse me, my voice is cracking there, using a little bit more of the UV resin and then just spreading it with my paintbrush. You can kind of see there that it's not very thick, but it's not a super thin layer either, because your bubbles still need that structure. So if you have a really thin layer, you might not have a bubble with a whole lot of structure, if that makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense or not. But so just really, I'm not spreading it thin, I'm just spreading it evenly. That's what I'm trying to say, is just spread it evenly if you're going to use this technique. If you do it in sections, then you can kind of, just put it on your section and then put your bubbles on. So I got the hang of it a little bit better this time, blowing it in my hand and then trying to put the bubbles around, and I'm kind of failing a little bit. I'll get the hang of it. Now the soap bubbles that I want the soap bubbles themselves to be a little bit bigger. I don't want those tiny white foamy bubbles. I want the soap bubbles to be bigger because I want my UV resin bubbles to be bigger. So the bigger your soap bubbles, the bigger your UV resin bubbles will be. And you'll see this, you can kind of see that a little bit there. And I'm pointing at my screen like you could see what I'm pointing at. But the bigger your bubbles, the bigger your structure is going to be on your glass. And this just gives you really cool design options. It's just more interesting and different and cool. Now, as I'm using my UV resin curing light, I'm just turning my glass because it has this, convenient built-in handle right there at the bottom on the stem. And then wiping off with a paper towel. But once again, this was not a good idea because I can see even here that it is a little bit sticky and I can feel it. Like even wiping it off, I can feel that it's a little sticky. So I am just going to take those two, wipe off what I can, and stick those under the light again for another couple of 60-second cycles with the UV resin lamp, and it worked great. I'm pretty much doing the same process with glasses 3 and 4, and I'm still struggling with the bubbles. Leaving the bubbles in the jar seems to work a little bit better because I can contain them a little bit better and then just scoop them out with my little silicone spoon, which works really well, and it's less mess. The difference that I made with this glass and then the fourth glass is that I am not wiping off the bubbles after I do a full cycle with the UV resin light. So I feel like curing them longer than a 60-second cycle, try saying that 3 times fast, really is the key, and then not wiping the bubbles off until you're absolutely sure that they're cured. Because what you don't want are sticky spots. I don't know if it's the type of UV resin that I used. I used a Light Wish. I've not tried this technique with Let's Resin. I will try that next. Or maybe I'm not putting a thick enough layer of the UV resin, but I'm always left with really rough spots and burrs on the glass. So I'm taking 320 grit sandpaper, I'm taking a 320 grit sanding block and then my X-Acto knife and just making them nice and smooth because I'm going to be putting a top coat of liquidy split, KSRESIN liquidy split, and I want them to be smooth. I don't want any burrs. You're going to feel the texture, but you don't want to feel sharp edges. That is definitely not good. I used pieces of pool noodle and some tape to make these cushion pedestals for the glasses while I was working on them, but it turns out I really didn't need them. I used 2 Sesso mica powders, the Royal Golden and the Silver White, and Eye Candy in Nokon Blue, which is a gorgeous blue color, and links to these are in the description below the video. I'm starting with the Nokon Blue. There's really no, rhyme or reason to starting with the Nokon Blue. I just kind of wanted to add a dramatic flair to the very bottom of the glass. I don't really think I was going for like an ocean kind of theme, but I'm just putting a kind of a thin little application on the very bottom. I did switch brushes because the brush I was using was a little bit too thick, or not thick, but it was a little too stiff, and it was really making kind of a mess. So there I'm switching brushes, and it's still messy. Like, I don't know if there's a better way to do this. I'm probably going to have to maybe experiment with either a thinner brush or maybe a cotton tip application, Q-tip application. I don't know. But it's messy, it's dusty. I have my fan going, I have my window open, I have my door open, so I'm not breathing in a bunch of mica powder fumes. If that's dangerous, I don't know. But I have ventilation, guys, don't worry. And then adding the Silver White with a little makeup brush that I got from the dollar store. Just tip tap, adding it like you're powdering your face, I guess. Which I don't wear makeup, so I don't know if that's what you do. But anyway, this is a great brush. But what happened was that I was trying to blend the edges together and not make the edges so harsh. And of course, what did I do? I blended away all that pretty blue and all that pretty gold. So I had to add some more. And this is okay because I'm learning. I'm learning that I should have added the silver white first because I really, really love that look. And then I should have gone back in with the blue and the gold and added those as highlights. So the silver white as a base, I think was the answer. Definitely was a win-win on that one. And then going back in and adding the other colors as a highlight color. So I'm definitely going to be playing around with this combination some more and figuring out what works best for me. Then just taking a clean paper towel and wiping the excess mica powder off the glass. And now it is time for resin. I'm using the KSRESIN Liquidy Split. It's my go-to, and I'm mixing 40 milliliters of KSRESIN Liquidy Split, which is going to be a little bit too much for these 4 glasses because I'm only putting the resin on the bottom of the glass where I have the decoration, but I always have a mold handy so that if I have extra resin left over, I can always, make something else to use in a later project. And I'm really taking my time around the very top of where the UV resin bubbles are on the glass because I want there to be a really secure bond between the resin and the glass, and I want to make sure the UV resin bubbles are really secure and sealed. You don't want any kind of moisture to get in between those layers. Otherwise it could, eventually it would ruin the look and it would ruin the resin. So I'm paying particular attention to that very top, but I also don't want a, crap ton of resin on the rest of the glass. I'm not putting resin on the whole glass, which is why I think 40 milliliters definitely was a little bit too much. But you can see I'm really massaging in that resin in those on top of their UV resin bubbles because I want them to be sealed but still be able to feel the texture through the finish on the finished piece. But I want it to be smooth. I don't want it to be sharp like a splinter. These are nice and smooth. As expected, I had a lot of resin left over, so I'm just taking out some alcohol ink in my seahorse mold, and I'm just making a nice little cute pattern on the seahorse mold, and then pouring my leftover resin in and just making something cute for another project that you all are going to see in an upcoming video. These little seahorses turned out really cute. And I still had resin left over even after pouring the seahorse mold. So I just used the rest of it on the glasses, just to use it all up and not waste any resin. Then I just did a quick once over with my heat gun on a low heat and high air setting just to pop any bubbles. I'm not trying to move any resin. I am just trying to pop all those little micro bubbles that tend to pop up. You want to be really careful with this because you could end up burning your resin or melting the resin underneath. So be careful with that. Just a little different, But it's a different way of using UV resin. It's a different way of using mica powder. I really love it though. I hope that you can see that. Look at that. Really, really happy. This is textured. I can feel the texture, but it's okay. It's not sharp because I had already sanded down the rough edges. So it's really fairly smooth, and I was a lot more careful with the edge here than I was on the first ones that I did. Still very, very simple and elegant, and I think these will sell really well. I really like this look. My goal is to try different techniques and use materials in different ways because there's all different kinds of ways that you can use UV resin and mica powders, really anything. So I'm just trying different techniques and giving you, just giving you some ideas. I really, really love this. I really like the mica powders on top of those resin bubbles. I need to figure out a way though that I can seal the mica powder in because it seemed like when I put the top coat of resin on that it migrated a little bit and it washed it out a bit. So I'm just going to do some quick cleanup on this and call it a win. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Bye, friends.